Hey, it's only me. Stick around if you want to hear about my battle with food insecurity. Why don't I call myself what I am, and that's a starved child? It's not a little battle with food insecurity. I was starved as a child. It seems severe because I minimized it. It seems too severe to say I was starved, but that's exactly what happened.
Before we get started, here are the trigger warnings.
When I was younger, I had a stepfather who went to prison, and my mother struggled to keep us in the basic necessities such as housing, food, clothing, things like that. I didn't really realize how hard she was struggling and how difficult the situation was until one day when I was feeling like a very big girl. Because I had ate this food, and I remember it was, I don't know if I'm allowed to say a specific brand. I think I'm allowed to, but let's just say ravioli from a tin. If you're American, you'll know what I mean by that. But anyway, I was having pasta from a tin, and I ate the lot of pasta, and I realized that I could eat a little more, actually. So I went to my mom with this empty bowl, like Oliver from Oliver Twist, and was like, oh, actually I ate all that, but I'm such a big girl because actually I'm still a little hungry and I could have a little more. And I remember to this day the look on her face of pure horror at realizing that I was still hungry and she had nothing else to give me. And I realized immediately as a child, which you don't really think of children as being that intuitive, but they absolutely are. I realized straight away what was happening and that she didn't have anything else to give me. And then I was like, oh no, actually, I'm okay. I'm fine, actually. I just thought I could have a little more, but it's no problem. I'm not that hungry. But that was a heartbreaking moment for me, and another one of those like life-defining moments where your heart breaks a little bit and you realize life wasn't exactly the way you thought that it was, and actually we were very poor and we did not have enough money for food. Now, I've been told we did go and get free food from soup kitchens, but to be honest, I don't particularly remember doing that. I don't really remember this time in my life very well at all. There was a lot of trauma and everything was really difficult for me, so to be honest, I don't remember that. I remember being hungry though. I remember being very hungry. The pain of hunger, the feeling in your stomach, not being able to sleep because you have that gnawing sensation in your stomach. Oh, I'm just so triggered by that. I hate hunger pains so much. It's just awful, isn't it? And one of my triggers now is when we have food on the table and we eat it. If the food is gone and I am still hungry, like in that experience that I told you about, that's enough for me to be totally triggered because there's no more food on the table. And in my mind, I know that there's plenty of food in the rest of the kitchen. It's really no big deal, but it doesn't matter. My PTSD acts up. It's a trigger for me, and I just burst into tears and start crying. It just bothers me. I hate the thought of being hungry, and if I'm still hungry after the meal, that's a trigger for me. At some point, we did have enough money to eat, and I feel like other people in my family maybe did, but I still didn't. I totally felt like a drain on resources, and like if I ate, it took food from other people or like out of other people's mouth. I totally felt like I shouldn't eat, even though I could at that point. It followed me, and it was of course for a few years that we had the food insecurity. And then I also thought, I just don't need breakfast actually, because when I did try to eat it, I just felt so sick. Oh, the thought of eating breakfast, and even now I can remember that feeling of just, I just wanted to throw up if I had breakfast. It made me feel terrible. All day I'd feel awful. And I never had lunches. I remember begging my friends for lunches, even at a very young age and through high school. I remember thinking, oh, I'm so jealous of these kids with their amazing lunches and their little yogurts. And I just remember being so jealous of all my friends who seemed to have tons of food. And I used to ask them if they had any leftovers, would they be able to give it to me? But it's such a rare thing that anybody has leftovers, isn't it? And it must have been odd for them to have me asking for their food all the time. I don't think as a kid or even as a teenager you really realize why people are doing that. And I feel like people are quite not self-absorbed, but at that age, I don't think they're able to put themselves in your shoes the same way as you are as an adult. And I think nobody really realized what was going on with me and that I was asking because I was literally starving. And nobody really gave me their food regularly or shared their food with me regularly. I went all day at school with no food, and by the time I got home, I was absolutely starving. And I remember going to visit other people's houses and telling them, oh, I'm so hungry. I haven't ate all day. I haven't ate in the past 24 hours and I'm so hungry. And I don't really understand why nobody did anything about that or tried to help me with that or even just sent me home with a loaf of bread or I don't know. I remember as a child sticking my finger in the butter and just eating the butter because there was nothing else to eat and I was so hungry that I would just eat anything that was in there. And I do remember one time my mom made me a cake for my birthday and there was some frosting left in the back of the fridge because, like, what do you do with the leftover frosting? You don't have money for making cakes all the time. So I ate the frosting and it was so good, and to me it felt like such a big treat not to have to eat the butter. And I was like eating this frosting, and that to me was like, it was like a highlight of that whole year because it was a terribly traumatic year as well. And I remember a lot of abuse happening at that time. And sometimes I think for traumatized kids, sometimes it's the little things that you can remember back and think, oh yes, that one time we had that little bucket of frosting and I would dip my finger in, and I remember my mom saying, who's been eating this frosting? I could see loads of like fingerprints, and I was like, that's me. I love frosting. I don't like the thought of feeling hunger. And even if I do feel it and I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it's no big deal. It's 11:30 and I'm gonna have lunch at 12. It's no big deal. I have tons of food in the house. I still don't like it, but I can deal with that. But being afraid of skipping a meal, or actually skipping a meal, is very triggering for me. I do not do that and I don't like it. That makes me feel comfortable to have 3 meals a day and to know that I can look forward to eating and not feel hungry. I hate the thought of going to sleep hungry. Obviously, it's so painful. And I remember that as a child, being so hungry going to sleep and having those stomach aches and just feeling terrible and not being able to sleep for being so hungry. And I just can't do that, so I tend to overeat because I have my dinner and then I feel like I have to have a snack right before bed because I can't deal with the feeling of that hunger right when you're going to sleep. And I will overeat to not feel that pain, to not be triggered by that, and that's a really hard space to be in. It also is really triggering for me to know that somebody I care about is skipping a meal. It drives me crazy if I have a friend who's like, really busy at work, I think I'm just gonna work through and skip a meal. Well, that drives me nuts. I hate it. I hate it for you. You don't mind it. Is bothering me because I hate the thought of anybody going hungry and feeling that. It's triggering to me somehow, even though it's not even happening to me. I'm just a really sympathetic person. I would just literally be offering you all my food, all my lunch. Oh, I've got a little yogurt, why don't you just eat that? And my friend's like, I really don't care. I'm just skipping lunch. It's not a big deal. And I'm like, but I've got this banana. You could have that if you want to, but I've got this and I've got that, and why don't you just have a little snack, or I can buy you a chocolate. I don't know, it just bothers me so much. I hate it. And I always have a stash because I hate the thought of being hungry and not eating, so I always have a bit of a stash. And as a child, I always hid food in my closet, and I don't know why. I liked the thought of having food in my closet if I needed it. And it would literally be anything. It could be candy that I received at Easter or something I've gotten from a family member, anything, and I will put it in my closet until it's so off that you cannot ever eat it. It would be actually harmful to your health, but I don't mind because actually it gave me more joy to know that it was there if I was starving than it would have to actually just eat it and enjoy it. It gave me more joy to know that it was there. It just made me feel really secure and really happy. If it did go off, which it always did, I would still feel the guilt of that because I did want it and I did want to eat it. So if you stashed food in your closet, you're not alone. Why the closet? I don't know. I felt like it was something I could control. I felt like it was something that was just for me and nobody would notice, and it was just at the bottom of my closet, and I would have a ton of candy there or some tins of soup or just anything. That was something I could control and feel like if I am starving, I have it. And I needed that. I really needed that. See you next time.